Okay, well, we are right at the turn of the half hour here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on best practices for remote workforces presented by PDI on behalf of Sigma. My name is Matthew Masadi, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of managing the working relationship with Sigma for PDI. I'm here in my home office in St. Louis, Missouri. With me today are my colleagues Vlad Kolak, our President of Engineering, who will be presenting today from our headquarters in Atlanta. Cedric Johnson from Marketing is running things behind the scenes for us. And Joe Kalmar, our VP of IT, I think he's got our Dallas offices posted is his background. I also have three leaders from PDI customers with us today to share some of what they've implemented and what they're seeing during this COVID-19 crisis. We have my friend Bob Manning, CFO of Likens Energy, joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio. Hello, Bob. We have my man Ed Wondergem, CFO of SC Fuels, joining us from Orange County, California. Ed, good morning to you.
Good
we
morning.
have my paisano, the one, the only, MJ Costello. He's the managing partner and CEO of Andretti Petroleum, and he's joining us from Palo Alto, California. Good morning, MJ.
Good morning, Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you again, gentlemen, for participating in this webinar with us today. So the genesis of this webinar came a couple of weeks ago, just after the Sigma announcement came that the spring event in San Diego was going to be canceled. Ryan McNutt, who's the CEO of Sigma, he called me and he said that although we weren't going to be able to all gather together, he wanted to make certain that Sigma continued to provide valuable thought leadership, especially through these uncertain and bizarre times. Knowing that PDI already maintained a large remote workforce across the globe, Ryan asked me if we would consider presenting a webinar on behalf of Sigma on this subject of best practices for remote workforces. Serendipitously, when Ryan called me that morning, which was 2 weeks ago today, I just gotten off our weekly PDI leadership team meeting on COVID-19 updates, which we run every Wednesday morning. During that very meeting, Vlad, who is our presenter today, told the team that he'd written a blog on the subject of best practices for remote workforces. So when Ryan asked me if PDI could present on this subject, I said, funny story, I got just the guy. So as I turn this over to Vlad, we're gonna keep this webinar conversational with our panelists. And please also submit any questions or comments you have in the chat box, and we will try and circle around to address these in a Q&A session at the end. With that, Vlad, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate the great intro. By the way, love the background. The guitars are awesome. So, well, thanks for everybody jumping on. You know, as Matthew mentioned, my name is Vlad Kolak. I'd love to kind of chat a little bit about kind of how we all, you know, are really handling this new normal, right? We're all kind of getting used to and coping it, and there's several things to really consider. There's really business continuity, right? Organizational, technology, and emotional considerations. And so we'll run through those, and we'll kind of keep it conversational. So we'll have several people jump in to really get their color and perspective. So when it comes to business continuity, there's several things that you know, we think companies ought to do, and we certainly do them at PDI. You know, we look at trends continuously just to kind of watch the pandemic and see what the impact is on our business. And in fact, we run what-if scenarios, right? So we look at, you know, given the trends, can we forecast and model, you know, what happens with our sales, what happens with our accounts receivable, cash flow, operations, and so forth. So we think it's very important for companies to do that, especially now, just so they better understand sort of their impact, right, on their business. We've also do this thing called retrospectives. Essentially, we look at, you know, in the past, what happened last 2 weeks. You know, are there any risks that we identified, and can we minimize those risks and kind of continue improving? And we've been doing that for a while, actually. So our development teams do retrospective every 2 weeks, so they can continuously improve. Even you know, our marketing is actually doing retrospective periodically. So it's kind of a good tool to really kind of look back and see what we all can improve on.
Ed Wondergem from SC Fuels, you told me that that your leadership team was having daily COVID-19 briefings and meetings. Are you looking at similar retrospectives, continuing to plan, even after this crisis?
Yeah, we do actually. But first of all, we start out our meeting with our environmental, health, safety, and security discussion. State of California, things are changing every day. And so we start out with that, and then we get into the trends. We look at demand trends, what's happened the last 35, 40 days. We look at cash flow. We look at our accounts receivable on a weekly basis and make sure we keep caught up on that. And then we talk about team members, what's going on with the different team members. And, that's something that we've put in place about 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure after this is over that we're going to do it daily, but probably something on a weekly basis will continue.
Yeah,
that's great. And then MJ, I know that Andretti is also having daily COVID-19 briefings. Are you looking at similar data?
Yeah, we have a 4 o'clock kind of a steering committee. It's my COO, myself, and our Director of Human Resources. One of the challenges that we found is a lot of the communities in trying to respond, cities, counties, it's very different. We're doing business in Oregon, Northern California, North Coast, Bay Area. So it's been a bit of a challenge to, obviously find the best practices and look at the coronavirus prevention guidelines and our internal safety initiatives, but we're getting a lot of help, all good intentioned. But various cities have different rules and different signs they want you to post. So we're just trying to stay on top of this, obviously meet all the requirements of various cities and counties, but by the same token, we're trying to make sure our execution's real good on it. So yeah, we're on it pretty much every day, and then we deploy for the next day. And I think at this point we seem like we're kind of grooved in. We have all the prevention measures in, and we got a good communication infrastructure. But it's been a heck of a fire drill here, going from 0 to 60. It's been kind of whiplash on this thing.
Yeah, MJ, I think everybody's probably feeling the same thing for sure. So, the kind of the next thing we can look at is communication, right? It's we all know it's very critical for us to communicate. We actually employ this, 3 C's of crisis comm. So we'll look at coordination, clarity, and compassion, right, with everything we do. And so that's been very helpful to have the clarity and direction from our senior leadership team. How do we kind of behave in this crisis, and how do we make sure that we continue supporting our employees and our customers, right? And to that end, we employ, the task force that's meeting every day is, once a week at least, is publishing updates, right? So we know as a whole company what really is happening, what are we dealing with. And then I think one thing that's critical that we've done, which I think other companies should consider, continue communicating positive news, right? There's still a ton of positive news in everybody's business, we think, and it's important for the teams to really understand that it's not all bad, right? At the same time, staying close to customers is important, right? Especially now that everybody's remote. Same thing, positive news to customers is always good as well. And in fact, this is where I would probably point to Joe Kalmar. I know you guys are, from IT perspective, doing daily updates, which to me, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, thanks, Vlad. Joe Kalmar, Vice President over IT, security, and our cloud services here at PDI. One of the things that we really focused on really is getting the information out to our senior leaders with regard to daily health checks, if you will, regarding our infrastructure. We have a lot of cloud-based systems today, and I think we all know that the internet has been quite busy today. And so you want to keep those communications flowing and set the expectations for our senior leadership to really understand what's going on in the business, what IT challenges do we have, and we've really fared pretty well. So far, which has been kind of nice. And then the other thing that we do is for our user base, just because it's such a different environment for the user to go from the office now to working from home. So there are things that are different, things that they do different in the office that they now have to do, different at home as well. And so, periodic helpful tips on working remote and using some of those tools and how they use them. Simple things like, a great example is password changes, right? Can be different when they're in the office versus working from remote. And I have daily stand-ups with my internal IT teams as well, just to keep abreast of the current situations. The other thing that we do is look for trends, in our systems. Are we seeing things get more and more busy? Do we need to build in bigger capacity here or there to accommodate some of the situations we're dealing with out there? But it's worked it has worked very, very well for us so far.
And even beyond the technical considerations, Joe, that go into a remote workforce. Bob Manning, you said that at Likens, you're taking just the old-fashioned, making sure that you're speaking with all of your employees every day, that everyone has a point of contact. Is that right?
That's correct, Matthew. We expect their managers. We've set everyone up internally on teams and the managers, and then that all kind of cascades up to the whole company. So we make it a point of emphasis for everyone to touch base with those people daily and kind of just see what's going on with them, and actually do it as a team. So everybody, we're not losing that cohesion that we had here in the office. That is an ongoing presence, and that they know too that what the expectations are for them, and the manager follows up with them every day on those too, more on an individual basis. But certainly the Teams has been really good for us. We went from being Skype and trying to do things with just over the phone, and nothing really worked out at all compared to what Teams. And just to see somebody and look at them is a real positive.
Are you noticing that people are using their video more than before?
Well, yeah, we weren't really even set up on it before, but now that but we got about 2/3 everybody at home. It's how we're communicating now, and it is working out very well. And it's going to be, I'm sure it's something we're incorporating out in the future too. So
we've noticed that too at PDI. So we use Ring Central, and we'd be on these calls, and everybody's screen would either just be a picture of them, or it would be just black, and everybody was just on their phone. But now everybody's utilizing.
And if you turn on your camera, then others will too. There's always that one person that my camera is broken, right?
Yeah.
but most of the time, it's been really great to see everybody's picture right on the camera, and just kind of continue that.
They're the ones in the pajamas.
There you go. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So I think we can turn our conversation on to the next thing, which is, Joe, you mentioned cloud, right? And kind of the, how, our systems are cloud-based. And, Joe and I had this conversation before the webinar, and really, we discussed that really this COVID situation, credit to our IT team, has kind of become almost a non-event, at least from IT perspective, because all our internal systems, or most of them, are in the cloud, right? And we all know, cloud providers, and PDI is one of those providers, right? Is the specialized application hosting, infrastructure, security, and scalability, and redundancy, big data. So it's been, for us at least, it's been important to know that we're able to continue our operations without having to rely on systems in our headquarters or other offices. So that's been something that we realize, and we certainly encourage our customers or anybody out there to kind of start considering how cloud could potentially help them mitigate some of those risks, right? And it's obviously never too late to start. So continue with the business continuity discussion. We've seen quite a bit of increase in malware and phishing attacks. Hackers are clearly taking advantage of this climate, and so they increasingly send phishing attacks and try to get inside of our networks and systems. And so I think now it's still important to make sure don't compromise on security, right? Especially now that workers are remote. The questions companies should be asking themselves is how do we continue protecting our network and systems when everybody's remote? Do you let employees use personal devices, and do you have antivirus on them, for example, right? In PDI's case, we've early on, even when we have contractors or employees, they all get equipment. because we can protect it. We can put antivirus on it and make sure that we're safe as possible. So I think not taking shortcuts is very important. And then the second aspect of it is really this IT continuity planning, right? So as companies should really look at removing single points of failure. And this is not just IT or infrastructure. This is people as well, right? So what roles do you have in your companies that there's one critical role that only one person can do? And can you get some redundancy there? Should they get sick, the business can continue serving customers, right? So that we feel that's important. We've actually have done quite a bit of work, especially since the pandemic, to really look at our teams and our redundancy so we can continue serving our customers.
MJ, you told me that at Andretti Petroleum, one of the first things you did was roll out your VPN. Is that right?
Yeah, we have two main offices where the staff's located, one in California, one up in Oregon. And pretty clear that if someone, had symptoms or someone was diagnosed, you'd wind up with a real problem with, potentially 20 people winding up in a quarantine. So we broke our teams in both offices up. We basically sent half the people home. We deployed laptops. We have some people on their personal computer, VPN set up. And then, it allowed us to not only create a redundancy for the particular functional area, but also with some staff home, we created distance in the workspace. Our offices are basically set up. Most people have offices or large workspaces. It's not too cramped, but we kind of cut the staff in half, sent the other half to work at a home. We use Teams, like Bob mentioned, and we deployed Teams. We went from Zoom to Teams in January. It was like a miracle. It's pure accident with all the Zoom stuff that's gone on, but it's worked really well. And as you said, that the people that are working remotely daily are in some type of engagement through Teams, some type of meeting, video meeting, sharing of documents and things of that nature. And then the other piece is we try not to forget the stores. Is our district managers with the personal protective equipment, and our stores, everybody's masks, gloves, the distancing and so forth, the bleach, different things. Our district managers are still in the field. So their job is to still go out in the field, and we're asking our frontline people to interact with cashiers. We put shields up, a variety of things, and our district managers are equipped, and they're out there too. So we're trying to keep maximum connectivity where we can, of course, take all reasonable precautions, and I'm not knock on wood here, but it's been working really well, and we don't have a single confirmed case. We have a couple of people that are home in quarantine that have some symptoms, which I think we all know probably 80% of the people that get tested actually don't have it, but everybody thinks they have it. It's only natural. So I think that redundancy is super important. You don't want your eight accounts payable team to all go down or knock out an entire office. You got to really hedge your bet on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense, Jay. And I love the fact you guys are using Teams. It's I've used it in past life, and we use it somewhat here as well. And it's a really good way to continue collaborating. So, so I think that the next step or next sort of topic would be really good to discuss is, we talked about redundancy, but how do you know that, you're redundant, right? Especially in IT. And so I think it's important to really test IT systems regularly. There's this discipline called chaos engineering, which is pretty interesting. It's basically introducing failures on purpose in infrastructure or software, but in a controlled way to really look at vulnerabilities, right? So the idea is, as opposed to us getting caught by surprise and then scrambling to fix issues, can we do that ahead of time when we can control it and then get prepared for that? And one company that's really famous at this is Netflix. They created this thing called Chaos Monkey. And it's basically a piece of software that literally shuts down servers on Netflix network. And it's a little too extreme, right? But what they're doing is making sure that they can handle any kind of failure. And it's actually been working really well for them. And so, we do something similar, not to that extreme, but we do periodic system tests. We even do things like internal phishing attacks on our own employees, right? So that way, we know that people are or are not clicking on some links they shouldn't be in, and then we educate them on how to do it right. Lastly, I think customer support is important. We talked a little bit about, continue serving our customers, right? So, we, for example, have I've talked to our support team, our global support team, and they're prepared to work remotely. Same thing. They have a team chat. We use Ring Central for that, but they have team chat, and they kind of try to recreate this water cooler moment as well. They look at metrics very closely. And one thing that was interesting, I thought was an interesting comment, is that we prepared for inclement weather. Right? We knew that there might be inclement weather in the future, so they already prepared for people working remote, right? And this been actually going to be, we were able to apply the same lessons during these times as well. So that's all IT, business continuity, right? We think that there's also quite a few organizational considerations.
Hey, Vlad.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, real quick, just to add one more point to the business continuity. There's nothing that says that you can't send pieces of your workforce home to sort of exercise your plan. I think that's a great way to ensure before a crisis happens that you have measures in place.
That's
right?
a great idea. Yeah, it's a really good.
Yeah, so you can send parts of a department home just to exercise the plan way ahead of time. So that's something to always be thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thanks, Joe. That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because there are companies that have figured this out. In fact, there's many companies that have been remote or distributed from day one. So it's not a new phenomenon. We can learn from those. One I like quite a bit is a company called GitLab. They basically build software to help software companies. They have 1,200 employees in 67 countries, and just about everyone's remote, right? So what they had to do is they figured out that essentially they still have to have processes. They still have to have accountability. In fact, they put quite a bit in employee handbook around, how to work remotely. What are the expectations, and what are, everybody's clear on their roles. So there's a way to do this very well that has worked for a lot of companies, we can certainly learn from those. One thing that we've done here, and we encourage everyone to do as well, is now that everybody's at home, do they have a good working environment, right? You can easily survey employees and see, do they need anything? Do they have all the equipment? Do they have sort of, I'm sure many of them might be distracted, right? Kids are at home, working, going to school virtually, right? So, but how can we help our employees to be, feel productive and feel they can continue doing the work?
Vlad, as you know, I'm at home with a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old baby, and 2 barking dogs. I'm fortunate, so hence the guitars in the background. I have a little recording studio in my house, and it's soundproof. So I was very fortunate that I had a place that was free of a lot of noise that's going on elsewhere.
Yeah, that's great, man. Not everybody has this, right? There's this one famous thing there. If you Google BBC Dad, this was a person that was on BBC being interviewed, and it's hilariously his daughter just jumped in, and kind of the way he handled it was just really funny. But we see that now, right? Like, we're seeing people having to deal with all kinds of different ways, and I think we just need to empathize, right? Let's empathize with those that maybe don't have a great recording studio with a bunch of guitars right behind them. And so that's, we think that those kind of balancing that accountability, empathy is definitely very important. We also think that we need to balance employee engagement. We all talked about, how it's important to stay in regular contact, but also I think, and this is even prior to everybody working from home, we at least try to make sure that when we have a meeting, it's purposeful, right? We're not, we might have a water cool moment, that's great, but sometimes, as organizations, we can overdo meetings, and so it's important to kind of think about, why are we meeting? Set the agenda. Even, for example, I do this for my calendar. I block out some focus time, because otherwise I'll be doing nothing but meetings and couldn't really get any work done, and then I personally believe that companies should really give their employees permission to decline meetings, or at least question, right? Do I really need to be here, right? Or can I use my time better somewhere else? So some healthy kind of way to really set those boundaries is probably important. And employees should probably consider the same thing. So, it's really easy to work from home and, get up in the morning, start doing work, and next thing you know, it's 8 p.m. and you're still working, right? I think we all experienced that. So defining working hours, being remote is important, establishing some routine and scheduled breaks, just so we all sort of take care of ourselves as well, so then we can take care of our employees and our customers. And this is where I think somebody had virtual happy hours, right? The coffee breaks. I think there
Yeah,
people have done that before.
Ed Wonder Jim introduced me to the concept. Ed, when did you guys start doing these as soon as you went remote?
Yeah, we did a couple weeks ago. Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I get all my direct reports online. We have Ring Central, so we all have our little video cameras going. Everyone has their drink of choice. We go around and check up on how the work week went, how their families are doing, and then it just goes on. 2 weeks ago, I actually had to leave, and so I left them going. I came back like 2 hours later, and five of them are still going. So,
That's a
You know,
successful happy hour.
with your crew, that doesn't surprise me, Ed.
no, not at all.
Well, I took we've done a couple. My COO reached out to me yesterday just to check in on me and see how I'm doing with everything, which I thought it just meant the world to me that she did that. And she said, asked if there's anything that she could do. I said, let's have a virtual happy hour. So we're going to do that this afternoon.
That's
so thank
awesome.
you for introducing me to the concept.
Yeah, Matthew, Lynette did the same thing. She sent me a note, how you doing, how's everything? And it was, like you said, it meant world to me just to know that she's kind of thinking about me and our employees. So that was really awesome. And I think we all need to do as leaders, do that, right? Just reach out to employees and just to see how are they doing, right? Is everything okay, right? It's not just always about work, right? Let's figure out how to make sure that they're doing okay.
Yeah, MJ, you were telling us that you've even instituted hero pay for your team.
Yeah, this, I popped up in the different industries, Target and such, and back, I guess, about March 25th, we made really a pretty swift decision that we were going to do, start out with these people need battle pay. And I said, well, that's not great marketing. Pride ourselves on marketing. And we said, okay, somebody said, let's call it hero pay. So we basically put, really for retention was part of it. We said if through April 30th, and obviously we're going to review that depending how long this lockdown lasts, but through April 30th, every hourly got a $2.50 bonus that will be payable if they're employed with us on April 30th. And we also have a like program for all customer contact facing people. So we do have a couple people in the office, and the managers, obviously, who are exempt, have a piece of that too. And that's just been fantastic. And it's a pretty significant investment. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for our company. And I've just been absolutely floored with the notes. And, when you're in crisis, people are looking for leadership. They're looking for support. And, we stepped out on this really for retention. And it's been just an amazing morale builder and tremendous heartfelt notes. And, it seems like people, I try to spend at least 3 days a week in the stores still. And there's two issues. People are afraid of the virus, but people are afraid of going broke. And so we want to balance these things, and obviously the human interaction. So there's multiple stresses going on with people. So, we're trying to do all the concrete steps to prevent the virus, trying to do everything we can to talk about, we're not going to have a reduction in force. We don't see a reduction in force. We don't see a reduction in hours. We don't see a reduction in pay. And then these other things, the happy hours and just the human element of trying to keep people connected. So, it's a challenge, but I think the money is well spent right now. If anybody's thinking about doing something extra for an employee, they probably appreciate it 10 times more than they would in ordinary circumstances. Just like we all don't appreciate going to Starbucks and maybe having a cappuccino, and now we're just dying to get into a restaurant or to get back to normal life. So that's been really a positive for us.
Great.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so let's continue. There's a couple of more consideration, right? So we talked a little bit about business continuity. We've talked a little bit about other things as well. We also probably need to look at technology considerations, and we've covered that a little bit so far. But a couple of things that I'd like to point out is not everybody's a technologist, right? So I think we need to, as IT teams, kind of look at how to support the employees, help them figure out how to use these tools. It's back to kind of frequent updates, being able to make sure that people have all the tools that they need. And I know on the call we had several different sort of ways of doing it, right? So Microsoft Teams is a really good tool, both for video and as well as team chat. We at PDI use Ring Central. There's Google Meet, Skype for Business, WebEx, GoToMeeting. So there's no shortage of tools. One that's been very popular is Zoom. Although I think if you consider using Zoom, just take a look at there's a lot of security flaws in the system that Zoom's really looking to patch, and there's ways to prevent what they call the Zoom bombing when unauthorized people jump on your call. So that's something to be careful, and you just need to have the settings set correctly. But it's a tool that certainly a lot of people use. For us, we use Glip, which is kind of like Microsoft Teams for team messaging. It's been great. Instead of having to have a call or having to send an email, I can send a quick chat message to one or more people, our team, and then we can have this asynchronous discussion that could even happen in real time. So that's been a really good tool. And then, I think I personally strongly believe in these collaboration tools from, Microsoft Office to G Suite. Many times I've seen people send emails with an attachment, and somebody edits that attachment, sends it back, and it kind of goes back and forth, right? And I think we all been there. By the end, you don't even know which is the last version of that document, right? So these collaboration tools can certainly prevent that, and just kind of making sure everybody's on the same page and working off of the same document. Last thing I would say, there's emotional considerations, and we've just talked about that. MJ, you just kind of mentioned some of that, right? But we know that some people have a challenge working remotely. You can have this feeling of isolation, loneliness, maybe fear of missing out. There was a really good article by Harvard Business Review. It's called "That Discomfort You Feeling Is Grief." And they're saying that, people are feeling almost anticipatory grief, anticipating that what will happen, right? Afraid of the virus, but also afraid, as NJ mentioned, going broke, right? So that's certainly very important to realize. And so I think back to communication, the virtual hours happy hours are great. Kind of rallying the team and keeping it, positive and everybody together is important. And one of the quotes that I really like, Mark Cuban recently said that, the way companies treat workers during this pandemic could define their brand for decades. Right? And I believe that's true. So that's how do we treat our employees and customers will define us for long term. And I think this is kind of the end of our discussion. I know we're thinking maybe have some questions after this, unless you guys
we have one question from Allison Patrice. The question is, and I'm going to let Ed Wondergem and Bob Manning answer this one. Relative to AR, what is the cash flow trend you are seeing, mostly on the wholesale side? Are you revising reserve methodology relative to credit risk?
Yeah, I'll start out with that. Yeah, we are revising our philosophy on that. We are bringing down credit limits because fuel prices are much lower. And so we are trying to protect ourselves from that standpoint. We have seen a slowdown, a slight slowdown in payments, but nothing significant at this point in time. But we are paying attention to it. We're getting our sales reps involved in helping collect and stuff because they're not going on the road and visiting customers as much as they had in the past. So they got more time. So they're working with our collections group. But it is an area that we are very concerned about, and we spend a lot of time working on.
We're really pretty much the same as Ed said. One thing we're really pushing on is trying to get customers that aren't on ACH that we control. We have a lot of smaller commercial accounts that are paying in 30 days, and we're really working hard. That's quite an extensive list of thousands, and just like Ed's people, they have some time now on the bulk plants, so they're following up with that list and really pushing hard to get people on ACH So that really puts us in control of the receivable.
That's great. MJ, what about you guys at Andretti?
Really similar. I mean, we're weighted heavily on the retail side, so we have less of the considerations, hundreds, not thousands, of customers in terms of commercial and dealers. But very very similar. You know, we're ACH, and we're trying to take it on a case by case basis. They're all a little bit different. We do have about 20 some odd tenants in retail strip centers, things of that nature that are adjuncts to our business, and we've actually offered a rent deferral proactively for April. So we've had some tenants pay, but we're working with people on a rent deferral, you know, trying to err on the side of giving flexibility to the tenant, but also we're not waiving rents. So we're just kind of keeping it as a deferral. But it's definitely a challenge, and there's going to be winners and losers, and unfortunately there's probably going to be businesses that don't make it through this. You know, we'll do the best we can to work with each customer, but I don't think there's a one size fits all here.
That's great. We have one more question, and we will go to Ed Wundergem from SC Fuels, our happy hour expert. The question is about virtual happy hours. Some tips about it, like what to talk about, how long should it be?
Well, I spend an hour. My team spends longer than that. But what we do is we start out, as I said, with an agenda of talking about, you go around to each one of them, talking about their teams, how their team's doing, how their workload is, do they need help from the other team members? And then we get into how's your family, what's going on, everybody healthy? And then it's just an open forum. This past Friday, one of my controllers was teaching everyone how to make homemade face masks because not everyone has them. So she was doing a demonstration. And so it's that kind of stuff.
That's great. Well, we don't have any more questions. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap. So again, thank you to Bob Manning from Lycans Energy, MJ Costello from Andretti Petroleum, and Ed Wundergem from SC Fuels for joining us as panelists today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this webinar. Hope everyone stays healthy and safe. And we hope this was a useful and helpful exchange of ideas as you take your businesses through this remote time for however long it might last. So also thank you to Sigma for reaching out to PDI to put this on. Appreciate everything you guys do. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.